asking your questions, getting your answers. This is your show. Here's your host, Adam Schrager.
Good morning and welcome to your show for Sunday, July 6th. Coming up on the program, NASCAR driver Jeff Burton and some of your criticism. But we begin this morning with presidential politics. Last week in Colorado Springs, we had the chance to pose some of your questions to the Democratic nominee, Illinois Senator Barack Obama. I have to apologize in advance. I asked a couple of my own as well.
I think, sir, the first question I'd like to ask you is, so we keep hearing here in Colorado how important we are in this process, in the presidential race. Let me ask you, how important are we?
Oh, you're really important. Colorado is going to be a battleground state. I think it is representative of the center of gravity in our national politics shifting to the west, southwest in a lot of ways. So Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, all I think are going to be competitive. And we're going to be spending a lot of time here because people here in Colorado have, I think, a good sense of what's at stake. A long-term concern about how we're preparing ourselves for a global economy. A long-term concern about issues of energy dependence and climate change. A long-term concern about how we're regarded in the world. And so I think this state's been ahead of the curve, and hopefully we're going to be able to appeal to that sense that we've got to really take advantage of this moment to prepare ourselves for the future.
You mentioned the energy side of things. A recent poll that came out last week here in Colorado showed the economy, energy, top issue. Speak to the concerns, if you will, of Colorado drivers who are paying the $4+ a gallon.
Look, it's backbreaking on everybody. I've met teachers who are having to give up teaching because the school they teach at is too far away. They can't afford to drive. I've met people who've lost their job and can't go on a job search because they can't fill up the gas tank. Families who are having to cut back on food to pay for gas. So, and obviously it's a drag on the entire economy. We need to investigate any market manipulations that may be driving up oil prices. We've got to get our foreign policy right because a significant factor in all the oil speculation that's going on right now is concern about geopolitics. And that's why I think dealing with the war in Iraq and Iran in a responsible way is so important. But ultimately, the thing that's going to be most important is making sure that we are investing in alternative fuels, solar, wind, biodiesel. And we're developing a new generation of cars. About 69% of our oil consumption is in transportation. If we can significantly reduce that by 30%, 35, 40%, that's going to drive oil prices down over the long term, improve our environment, and improve our national security.
I wanted to talk to you about your speech today on service. We had an opportunity to take some questions in from our viewers. And Ray Refior writes in, as a father of a college student struggling to pay for school with the cost of college expenses going up at a rate faster than inflation, what do you say to middle-class families that are struggling with this? And how does that relate to the service that you just talked about?
Well, as I've indicated, I'm going to put forward a $4,000 tuition credit every student every year. So that's going to put a big dent in the cost of college. In return, I expect college students either to participate in community service while they're in college or alternatively join the Peace Corps, decide they want to teach in an inner city school, be a nurse in an underserved hospital. There are all sorts of ways of service. But the idea is we invest in the next generation of Americans. They invest back in America. That's how we're going to make this country stronger and make college affordable as well.
Next question came from Blake, who wanted to know, how do you see this current trend of new generations that are supporting your candidacy and political participation shaping how the White House works if you're elected?
Well, one of the really encouraging things is this grassroots movement that young people using social networks and the internet have been able to develop. And we want to continue that so that when I'm in the White House, having a chief information officer who is working with each agency to make government transparent, to put information, budgets, projects all online, having virtual town hall meetings, making sure that we post legislation online before I sign it into law. I think there are a whole host of ways that we can make government more accountable and more transparent. And I think young people are tapped into that. They understand how powerful these technological tools can be.
You touched on this, but do you feel that they want to be involved?
Oh, absolutely. There is a hunger among young people to make their mark. And up until, I think, this year, the feeling was among young people, well, I want to be involved, but politics is dirty and corrupt and there's no reason to get involved in that. I'm going to join Teach for America, or I'm going to organize around Darfur, or I'm going to do a community project, all of which are worthy projects. But what's been encouraging is, I think, them feeling like our campaign is a vehicle for that idealism to express itself in our government, in our politics as well. And one of my hopes is that if we're successful, that we can attract a new generation of talent to go to Washington, to start dragging the federal government kicking and screaming into the 21st century, to provide new ideas, to redesign programs so that they work more effectively and save taxpayers money. I think there's a lot of potential.
Renee Howard from Golden writes in saying she's all on board with your campaign, but her husband thinks you're too green. Respond to that.
I'm assuming he's not saying I'm too environmental. He's saying I'm too young. Look, I understand people's preference for the silver-haired candidate. That's sort of central casting, although I'm getting more gray hair as time goes by. But I think that the question right now is, who's got a combination of the judgment and a vision for the future that will allow us to move this country forward at a critical period? And I think that I respect John McCain's service to our country. He is a genuine American hero. But if you compare where I want to take the country on health care, making sure health care is available to everybody, if you compare our tax plans, where I want to provide middle-class tax cuts and he wants to provide more tax cuts to big corporations. If you compare our approach to national security, where I've said consistently Iraq was a mistake, we have to be responsible in getting out, but our focus should have been on Afghanistan, and I think it was a huge mistake that John McCain backed to take our eye off Al-Qaeda. Then I think what you see is a mix of judgment and vision in our campaign that's going to take us where we need to go.
A CU Boulder student wrote us in, Jennifer Newell, who's a multi-ethnic individual herself, and she writes in, she doesn't necessarily like to be boxed in to one ethnicity. She wanted to know how you feel about being labeled African American or black while it's only one part of your identity.
Well, it's true that my mother was white and my father was African. I've got a sister who's half Indonesian. I've got a niece who's half Chinese. Our family is like the United Nations. But I don't consider it a wrong label to call me African American, because the African American community is diverse, is mixed up in all sorts of ways. We're a hybrid culture, so I'm proud to be an African American, but that in no way diminishes my connection to the other half of my family and my appreciation, first and foremost, of myself as an American.
Let me ask you one last question. So many people that I see come before us and ask for votes.
Yeah.
The typical question, with kind of as nasty as it can be, is, why do this?
Well, it is, I think, a unique moment where the country is coming off 8 years of disappointment. We've got these huge problems that have to be dealt with. And I think I've got the ability maybe to bring people together and change Washington in ways that are unique. And if I can get the American people behind that cause, then there's nothing that we can't do. But if we don't solve these problems now and we continue business as usual, then I think that America is not going to be the place I want it to be for my two wonderful daughters.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that covers it.